us into order. Spoon, you feel funny all the way over there. But, okay. So, we don't have any visitors to recognize, but we could start out by taking a motion on the warrants and the minutes and the agenda, and then we'll talk, David, about moving the agenda around.
Well, we don't have to, I can say.
Okay.
I moved my agenda around.
I move we approve the minutes, the warrants, and the agenda.
Perfect. Robin, you want a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that? And all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Here we go. So then, looking at the agenda, just to make sure there's nothing else that we need to add or delete or anything, we'll move around. We have committee reports, and then we have several new businesses. I do want to ask for a quick update on Vernon at some point, just so I have clarity, and we'll put that down under other. Anybody else have anything else to add to the agenda? David, did you have one more thing you sent me? Or- No?
I can't think what it was.
There was a bunch of things added after the first time this
And then
agenda
she
was
said
published,
it.
but now I
Yeah.
think it's relevant.
It's there.
Okay. So, and if we get done earlier, we all get home to our families faster, but I brought you cookies and cake. So, shall we start? It says committee reports instead of administrative, but I kind of feel like I want to move administrative to the top because we haven't heard from them for a while. Okay. So, Jerry. I'm going to close the script over here.
The reward for showing up, Jerry, is you get to give a report.
You guys have any reports you pass? Kelly, do you have a report you
I don't, because I wasn't even in the building today, so hopefully Andy will have it.
Just
when
while we're passing reports, I
Yeah.
think sometimes it's easier to. So the first page, one thing I'll just draw your attention to on the first page, our new entries. January was a busy month for us. We enrolled four new students. Vernon, transferred in from Vernon, Newfane, a family moved in from Saudi Arabia, and a new kindergarten registration who moved in from Wardsboro.
So if they move in from Vernon, that means they actually moved in, right?
Yes, it was a family who lived here about a year and a half ago. They had moved to Vernon, and now they're back in Brattleboro. So it's like it's not a tuition situation. Okay. And then on the back side are just some of our school-wide events and things. We just finished winter sports this past Thursday. This year was the first year that we changed winter sports a little bit for us. We felt that we were a small enough school that we could do winter sports all together. So we basically took 4 Thursday afternoons and shut down the school. That allowed for really all of our staff, because we're really staff driven. We can't do winter sports without all of our teachers and our
You went
parents.
longer time, right?
We used to just do three times. We used to do, but it took us 6 weeks because we used to do K to 3 for 3 weeks and then 4 to 6 for 3 weeks. So we did 4 weeks for the entire school.
And they went.
And we had Mount Snow, which we included grades 3 this year for Mount Snow. So grades 3 to 6 had an opportunity to go to Mount Snow. There was cross-country skiing for K to 6. K to 6 we contracted with Beak, so they did a program called Winter Wonderland up in the woods off Memorial Park. We did ice skating, we did sledding, and then we also offered what we called backyard games, so that some students who just weren't comfortable, that just stayed here. They weren't comfortable going out, or they just are not really big about winter, so we would do some arts and crafts, go outside and do some snowshoeing, and then we'd come back in for some hot chocolate. So they had kind of an indoor-outdoor experience here on, on site. And so those are all offerings, and it seemed to go really, really well. Today was our second annual First Responder Barbecue Luncheon, and Lyle came, and I left her passing out pickles like for a long time. I don't know how long you smell like pickles. And I don't have an actual count for you tonight. I just know that we invite Brattleboro Police Department, Brattleboro Fire Department, and Rescue Inc. to come during both of our lunch periods to just come and have lunch with the kids, and so that the students can see friendly faces, that these are people who are here that are there for us, that help us, and so it's a lot of fun. The kids love it, and I think the adults do too. So again, Lyle and Julia were there from central office trying to help us get food passed out as well. And then this weekend for our PTO, we have our big fundraiser at Harris Hill. We are
Are you still doing it?
we're still doing the Harris Hill fundraiser. Yeah, it seems to be kind of an annual thing, and we set up a booth there, and we sell hot chocolate, coffee, baked goods, and grilled cheese. It seems to be our number one. It's a big hit. So I guess the food vendors last year they're starting to kind of whittle away a little bit, and so I mean, you know, for the size of our school, we don't make a lot of money in comparison to some other schools' fundraisers, like, you know, the big Green Street 5K race, right? But for us, when we bring in like, you know, $1,000, it's a big deal. Feels good, and that's about what we clear. So.
Jerry, your staff they're involved with students all through the winter sports time?
Other than one afternoon. So again, we did 4 weeks, and so the first week that we went, everybody went. The second week, the K1 team teachers were allowed to stay back and do some professional development together. And then the 2, 3, and then the 4, 5, 6. So then they had one of the 3 days that they stayed back in the building. But for the most part, yeah. And our para-educators and our full step team, they all go too. And I go every time, and, you know.
Do you get a lot of parent volunteers, or?
Some. We get quite a few parent volunteers from Mount Snow because we get free ski passes, so it's you know, it's great, you know, that usually fills up pretty fast. And then we have parents who come to the ice rink, like to the ice rink or something.
And who organizes it, your office or the parents?
Well, this year, the office has taken it over.
Is that
it's
true
just
at Academy too right now, Andy and Kelly? Is winter sports really being organized by the office now, or is it still being done by the parents?
Oh, well, it's both. Both. A ton of work, but it's both.
Depends on where they ask Andy.
I did see a difference in there.
Well, the skiing is largely parents.
That's true.
Okay, the other things are largely us. And all the paperwork is with us. But we have less and less. We have much less to do with the skiing these days. Good parents, yeah.
And you know, the transportation cost to go to Mount Snow for the 4 weeks. Yeah, Mount Snow. I mean, we're really happy. We take a bus.
Because that's where Academy always takes parents to Mount Snow.
Right. Yeah.
So Mount Snow, I actually analyzed this when I was at Academy, and Mount Snow was the cheapest one because it took parents, and it's such a good deal from the mountain that it actually costs less than like ice skating or sledding, even because you didn't have to pay for the bus.
Well, and we tried to go do something similar to what Academy and or at least Green Street, they do like a sliding scale, and so we asked for a sliding scale for all of the different activities. And, you know, the economy today and the families, you know, that we have, I mean, there are families that just don't, even on a sliding scale, they don't have the means to pay. So basically what we brought in by families is gonna pay for Mount Snow, and we're gonna have to scramble to figure out how to pay for everything else.
Now, how does the endowment work in with this? Because I thought that's what the money was to be used for.
The endowment is trying to raise up to a certain level, so we're not ever giving of the capital that we have.
Okay,
So what we do is fundraising each year, we feel like we can give out, and so then we do, and we do $2 per child. that
okay,
is
so
participating.
it offsets the cost of paying for
It's
all these
something.
activities and buses.
It's something, it's appreciative.
Yeah, it's
But,
not
I mean,
enough to
now,
cover a lot.
to
I
go to Memorial Park, I mean, this year, because what we chose to do this year by taking everybody all at once, it required 2 buses to go to Memorial Park. So 2 buses to Memorial Park,
$400, $500 a day.
not quite that much, but it's it's $240, I think,
Okay.
for each trip. So, and again, Mount Snow is a lot of money.
Yeah. Well,
Because we don't, I mean, again, we have parent volunteers, but not enough. We had 30, because we maxed it out at 30 students to go to Mount Snow. I don't have in front of me, I don't know what the percentage of the students who paid even like in full, or
So
those who didn't pay.
I have a question in general on the winter sports history. I don't know, maybe I'm looking at Andy and Lyle from even before when I mean, I know that it was always parent fundraised, and at Academy it was clear that if the parents didn't take, well, at the time, pretty much all of it, take over all of it, then it wasn't gonna happen. That's why I was asking, because it sounded like that's not longer. Why is that? What is the history? Why is this a part of the schools but not completely a part of the schools? Like, it's not in our school budget, right?
Correct. It's not, correct, it's not in the budget.
But you can if you're in, well, at Academy, no, we would never touch the budget. It was only if the parents raised the money. Otherwise, the program didn't continue.
Right. There's no line item in the Brad County school budget for anything to do with winter sports. To the best of my knowledge, I mean, winter sports go back long before I arrived at Academy, and it goes back before, I think Lyle and I joined the district.
So it's always been parent-led.
But this is all paid for from like the butter braids and PTO money and the money from the endowment?
It's correct. It's
And-
fundraising and then
And parents.
parents pay.
And okay, there's like a suggested fee per kid or whatever?
Yes.
Yeah, so I can speak real closely on that for the last few years at Academy, but this year I don't know if it's still, we asked for $35 and usually about 30% of the population paid that traveled or that took part of it. And then the cheapest event that we did was actually Mount Snow because so many parents would come in and drive.
So the bus is the biggest cost.
The bus is
of
the
doing
biggest
that.
cost of doing all this, although, you
It's
know,
gone up.
depending on what you do.
Yeah, it's gone up in terms of what we asked, but we changed the expectation, I think, when you were there, that it used to be considered free. And if you could contribute something, contribute.
Right.
And we changed that expectation to that's not free, that it's the cost for a child. There's an expectation that folks pay this amount. However, if you can't, then pay what you can, and fundraising will take care of the rest.
And please talk to the office about what you can. You know, so it wasn't just your child's going no matter what, but kind of this is the expected donation, but if you can't, please talk to somebody, which shifted it quite dramatically. Although I'm not sure that it changed a whole lot of the percentage still what came in. And then we established a couple fundraisers, like what you're saying too, for Oak Grove and Green Street too, is that those are the fundraisers that go to winter sports. And the butter braid is the one that I started a long time ago. And once you establish something, then people kind of know what's coming.
In typically ACT, the parent would give us a contribution of generally it's $1,000 a year if they have it from their other activities.
And the butter braid usually raised 1,000 to 2,000.
Yeah, Clatterbury's been very successful.
I was thinking about the school buses. How many trips per year at your school or among all three schools are those non-regular that we pay $240 a bus per time? Is it like,
It's any field trip or anything would be like that.
But those aren't in the budget either. Those are also parent fundraised. The
What's that?
field trips, aren't they?
No, we have some money in the budget for field trips.
Yeah, there's a small line item that's shared by all three schools. I think it's,
I mean, is it possible that we're renting a school bus 100 times per year for all three schools?
no, no. No, I would say it's significantly less than that. We do, we do winter sports four times. I think Green Street is now five. Five, and Oak Grove is how many?
Four.
So that's, 13, had to think. Can't do math and talk at the same
But if they're
time.
more than one bus on each winter sports day, if they're going some to Mount Snow and some to
Yeah.
the sledding place, and so
Right.
it's like a few buses on each of those four.
So even if we double that, but it's not,
And then like one field trip per year for every class.
right, yeah, I'd say,
But we don't always take a bus on field trips. That's sometime, if there are events, some of the drama performances and stuff that are either at NEYT or the Latches, many of our older classrooms will walk down there.
parents drive to Bonneville, but just
Yeah.
curious, what's the purpose of your inquiry?
Well, just wondering if there were so many trips, if there was 100 a year between the three schools, it's $24,000, maybe it's worth for the school district to own one bus for such purposes.
But then you'd have to employ the
Yeah,
driver as well.
naturally, there's issues, yeah, but it could be maintained or parked at the
And it's done at the same time
DPW or
often.
something.
It probably costs
Although,
$80,000.
BAMS actually did something like that where they bought
They have two
two small buses, but they're small. They're like 12 to 15
They
people.
hold 15.
So that doesn't, but that works for the BAMS program because they were looking at similar thing.
But it seems like it's probably well below
The threshold.
the cost of providing a bus and driver for how much it's used outside of the getting to and from school.
Yeah, I don't think it would be cost effective.
When you consider maintenance, insurance, yeah, benefits for a driver, yeah.
Although Spoon, a couple of years ago, we did make sure that when we renegotiated the transportation contract, that we put in their field trips and winter sports specifically, so that it was included as part of the contract and we could get a decent comparison between companies, knowing how much the extra buses cost.
And I believe your contract is up again,
Yes, it is.
This year.
It's going up to that soon.
so it's the time that you can
Yeah.
negotiate that. As is your food service contract.
Yes, yes, it is.
One thing, Jared, I noticed, I was just looking at an old report, and I saw from last April, and your school attendance, or your school enrollment is up 16 people.
It's a pre-K. It's our preschool.
Oh, that's what,
Yeah, well, I mean, we have 14 students in preschool, and so then two
Oh.
additional students, so that's where that's from.
so that does it, all right.
Yeah.
So Jerry, will you have to do an additional fundraiser to try to find the funds?
We're gonna
Extra
wait,
funds.
we're gonna wait and see, how well we do at Harris Hill. You know, I'm trying to, in speaking with, PTO, you know, trying to not have PTO be all about fundraising. You know, have it to be more around, making family connections within the community, parent, teacher resources, education, helping think about after-school programming, doing those type of volunteer in the classroom or even after school, as opposed to just, you know, like just.
Yeah, nobody
give us
really
money.
wants to come to
Right,
that.
yeah. And so it's hard to try to find that balance, and I'm hoping that I don't all of a sudden have to come back on your PTO and say, okay, now you have to come up with a fundraiser because we don't have enough money. But we'll find the money somewhere, and I didn't mean to have the conversation
It
last
does-
this long about this, but, you know,
I wanna
I mean,
piggyback on
we'll
one
find the
thing
money,
there,
and, because they have some money in the PTO, but they don't want to drain it either.
Right.
So So I wanted to, it was one of the questions I actually asked Frank and wanted to update everybody on tonight too, that, remember we had a conversation of the money that is sitting, that Frank has in the endowment that's under our control. And then there was the money that the town has that we were hoping they would bring over to our control. And then the endowment exists. When we established the endowment, our goal was around $350,000, with the idea and the information being that you can take a certain percentage out, and that would get us like $12,000 or $15,000 a year, which would be a good chunk of the winter sports. It was the amount of academy schools some 8 or 10 years ago, but I'm not sure how much total winter sports is right now. But that would require having $350,000 sitting in one fund generating interest. And I did ask Frank today actually for an update from the town to see if the town money is coming our way or where that is, and he said they're still waiting to hear from the lawyer.
Okay.
Sounds familiar.
Although it was October, I think, so.
It seems to be our picture.
Anyway. But that would be something to look at that time, and that could be a help for the specific situation, depending on where that money ended up and how we did it. Sorry, Jerry, we kind of went off your administrative report.
No, I apologize to my administrators there. Yeah, it took so much time.
Andy, Kelly?
We'll pass our report around.
We already have it.
We have it.
And, yes. I think you can look at that at your leisure.
David, you have last one?
A couple of things going on. We did take advantage of a storyteller who was in Brattleboro and available to the district today, named Dr. Joyce, and I can't recall her last name. She goes by Dr. Joyce. A fascinating elder, as she likes to be called, and she came in and kept our sixth grade students spellbound with her stories today. Very interesting time, very interesting approach. And first of all, sixth grade, they're right now in the middle of doing narrative writing, so it was very timely in terms of the curriculum, so it was a great match to bring her in for that group. She had, all sixth grades were assembled on the floor in one classroom, and she sat and got up and walked and talked to them and told some great stories, and all of them had a moral to them. And it was fascinating to watch the kids. They really had a great time. And I spoke with at least 30 students afterwards throughout the course of the day in sixth grade, asking them, and I got great feedback. They really thoroughly enjoyed it. And the other thing I wanted to mention was that on Monday we had a legislative breakfast with 5 of our local legislators. All of them were invited, and we had 5 came. We talked about a variety of things, from special ed funding to the crisis in our community for children who are whose parents are opioid addicted. So
So it was you and the kids, or the?
Oh, sorry, the admins,
The
all the administrators.
I thought that was a little bit of a meaty topic for the kids.
Yeah, those kindergarten kids, they went over their head.
Andy, I was looking at this, and David pulled, last report you gave us was 5 homeless students, and now you're at 12.
9 in October. I just looked back at that.
9 in October, 5 in December, and 12 in, how many November?
The number will fluctuate, and it fluctuated significantly for this month, and we got, we had several students move in, and all the children who moved in were homeless.
Where did they move in from?
I don't want to say. I mean, it's irrelevant, but also it would get too close to identifying them.
All right.
But they were not from the local area. But a lot of, I mean, the student transiency, coming and going, continues at an alarming pace. There's so many students who are here for today, gone tomorrow. We got a student in who's not homeless, but she is 7 years old and has been in 9 different homes. Okay. It's just mind-boggling. I mean, the way kids are moving around. We had a student return today who started the school year with us after having been in a couple of different schools, returned today to us unexpectedly, showed up on our door, and has been gone, started this year and has been gone for a couple of months. I forget exactly when she left, but I think it was 4 months, and she's been in several different schools and did not attend school for a month. And these are not outrageous things I'm saying to you in terms of frequency. These are things that Oak Grove, Green Street, and we deal with every day. These were 10 years ago, this would be like big news. You know, this would be like, oh my God, this is a crisis, but this is an ongoing issue daily.
Can I ask, when students are moving residencies because of foster care situations, are they supposed to go to school in the town where their foster parent lives, or are they typically kept at the school where they were at before they were in that placement?
Well, there's an option. So generally, a couple things happen. There's no set response. There's no set answer for that. A couple things happen. Generally, we're looking for stability. So if a child is going to school in Brattleboro, for example, and they're going to a foster home in Vernon, which happens with some frequency, there'll be an attempt to keep the child in the Brattleboro school. However, there's no bus from Vernon. So unless that Vernon foster parent can deliver the child to Academy or Oak Grove or Green and then do the reverse, that can't happen.
Okay.
So it can be the town that they have lived in, or where the foster parent lives, now resides, and it can be a real challenge.
Transportation, is that often the deciding factor, whether or not the foster parent can drive them into Brattleboro to school, or do they just have the choice, the foster parent choose where the kid goes?
The homeless parent gets to choose where their kid goes, and they're
You're talking about the child's biological parent?
the parent with whom the child is with. If they're homeless, they can say, I want my child to go to school in Brattleboro. We have a homeless coordinator who is supposed to help them work out that transportation. If it's a foster parent, it's a little bit of a different situation. I'm not certain that foster kids are homeless in our.
Right, I wasn't talking about homeless, I just meant anytime when the child's taken out of where they're living, whether it was to live with a foster parent because of homelessness or any other reason, are they, and I guess the answer is, it just depends, there isn't a set procedure.
Right. We try to, with DCF and the school, try to do what's in the best interest of the kid, which is typically stay in that school. But we have kids that are in foster homes that go to Newfane or Townsend, or who go to, Vernon's really common, there seems to be several foster homes in Vernon, or Guilford, and then we really can't get the child there. It's also, if it's a temporary thing, if it looks like, well, the child's going to just be in foster for a short time versus what appears to be a long-term situation, then there's, every effort's made to keep the kid in the school that they were in. There's no point moving a child to a school for 2 months and then back to their home school. But it gets complicated, but yes, you're right, transportation becomes a significant factor.
As that child is relieved to be back in Academy. Familiar place.
Yeah, I think the kids, when they come back to our schools are, are happy because there again, it's a stable, school offers a level of stability.
So this is not exactly on our administrative
No.
reports, but I think, one of our main agenda items tonight is what we want to talk about with the town. This strikes me as one of the main things that we need to present to the town reps, that these are the things that we deal with, and this is our reality in Brattleboro.
As of January, last month, when I talked to the homeless liaison coordinator, we had 49 reported homeless children
Through the
through the
supervisory.
supervisory union, knowing that there are many people that don't report themselves as homeless because they're staying at a sister's house on the couch. A lot of high school kids who might be couch surfing, friend's house, a different friend another night, do not report themselves as homeless. So we know the number's probably quite a bit higher than that.
Because on just continue with DCF from it. Our DCF reports that we have here, those are the number of reports we're making, but nowhere on the reports, and I think it's, and I'm not advocating for that at all because of confidentiality, but it doesn't indicate how many students we have in our schools that are actually living in foster homes. And so we talk about enrollment, we talk about DCF reports. Again,
Well, there's a line
The
on
line says
academies that
foster.
says foster, none.
I thought we were tracking that, Jerry. We say foster 9 kids, and then Green Street.
Queen Street doesn't have
It's
any.
got five-
I don't-
it's
Yeah, no, it does, the very
Green
bottom,
Street
it's
has
in a different
Oh.
spot.
Oh, yeah, fine.
So it's only you this time.
Okay, then it's just me, I guess.
But perhaps you did that on purpose because it's such a
I
small
mean, our
school.
numbers are so small.
Yeah.
I mean, even to identify, homeless students,
It seems to me I did identify them in the town report, and I pulled those numbers from a previous report of yours.
Can I, before I just go off this, I just want to correct a typo. That on the back page, under school-wide events, the next to last one is slapstick science with Dr. Quark. And the date should be 2/27. That's the Tuesday we come back from break. That's not occurred yet. And the two shows, the first show is K through 3. The second show is grades 4 through 6. And parents and board members are invited to meet Dr. Quark.
Deb, Andy, are you done?
Yes.
Yeah? So Deb, I think it's yours.
Okay.
Oh, Kelsey's doing from our? Perfect,
Yes, I
sorry,
have
then Deb
green.
will put you off with
Okay. So the first thing to note is the average daily attendance. It's down a little bit, 91%, almost 92%. It's a little lower. Typically, we're around 96 or 97%, and that's due to a ton of sickness that we've had in the building. But Mark wanted to make you all aware that the custodial staff has sanitized thoroughly. Next, under new entries, we had a family move in from South Carolina. They have a first grade student and 2 fifth graders. And then 1 fifth grader from Hinsdale who registered yesterday and has not yet started, but will be. We also had a student who was placed by DCF at Community House. This was a student who was living in trauma, didn't have a foster home, really kind of in a tough situation. So that student has left our school for right now. On the next page, the top line there, we had quite a few students who participated in the NEYT Town School Theater performances, which were held on January 19th and 20th. After that, you'll see our winter sports programs. We just talked a lot about that, but we had our last day today. So this was our 5th week. And having 5 weeks was new to us this year. We've previously had 4 weeks of winter sports. We added 3 new events this year: bowling, retreat farm, that was kind of like an animal event, which the students loved, petting the animals and playing with them, and then a wilderness program. Overall, we've had really good feedback about those new programs, and students really seem to enjoy them. There were a lot of programs offered this year, so it seemed like students were able to find something that really fit them, which was nice. I'm then gonna jump down to a school-wide event that we have coming up, which is a puppet show on Friday, this Friday, February 16th, from the Crab Get Grass Puppet Theater. And the puppet show that they're presenting is called African Tales. And it will be held from 1:30 to 2:30, and school board members, you're welcome to attend the event if you would like to. And then right below that, it says planetarium assemblies. So on March 5th, the Green Street gymnasium will be turned into a planetarium. A large bubble will be put in the gym, it'll be blown up, and classes will go through the planetarium. They'll have 45-minute sessions, and there'll be different classes presented by people who are coming with the planetarium program to the different grade levels. And students are really looking forward to that. They're excited to see what that looks like. Down at the bottom, you'll see that more notes about resiliency. So that's been a topic we've been focusing on at Green Street this year. A full staff meeting on January 2nd was held where all staff members were invited to watch Resiliency, the movie. It's a really eye-opening film, and we had great discussions afterwards. And then our next step is we're going to be reading a book together, doing a book study, a full staff book study about, the book is called Fostering Resilient Learners. So we're going to start that after February break. And then lastly, Judy Maynard has been working with us, the external math coach who you've probably heard Mark talk a lot about. She has been working with us during the afternoons of the winter sports days, so different grade levels had different days with her. She spent the morning observing the co-teaching model that we have in place, and then we were able to meet with her as co-teaching pairs, and she gave us feedback on the things that we had asked her to observe. It was a really valuable experience. I can just speak from going through it. She's incredibly knowledgeable, and I definitely came away with a lot to think about from that conversation. So that's what I had for you.
Do you have a new hire as well?
Yes, I also have a new hire to present. I have her cover letter and resume here to give to the school board members and Lyle. So Rachel Mangine, who's our current art teacher at Green Street, she's .6, so she's there 3 days a week.
She's going to share with
Guilford.
right?
Yep. Mark would like to hire her for a .4 academic support teacher position, which would replace the current position held by Donna Remy Powers, partially. So this would be a 2-day, although the job as the AST teacher, the academic support teacher, would be spread out over the 5 days, as well as her art classes, which would give us more flexibility with the master schedule. And the other .4 from Donna's position, since it was a .8 position, Mark would like to use that to hire an instructional para at some point. But right now he's asking for a motion to hire Rachel Mangine to be full-time at Green Street.
So let me see if I understand the budgetary
Sure.
implications. In doing this, we're freeing up .4
Mhm.
of someone who's already in the budget.
Correct. So Donna Remy Powers is currently .8 as an academic support teacher.
And so if we go to the other one, then would he be wanting just that same amount? We wouldn't exceed what's already in there?
Correct.
And a portion of it is Title I, so we'd have to work that out as well. She's right now Title
The person that,
The .8
I. The .8
and
is
academic
Title I.
support person is Title I.
and just observation that was our thing that we talked about a lot, about how we were sharing with Guilford, that we can share under the current system. It doesn't happen a lot, but that was one of the things that we were saying when we were
Yeah.
looking at
But
sharing.
now it won't be shared
Now
anymore,
it
they're
won't
gonna
be
have to
shared.
find a new teacher for
So
art.
Guilford will be looking for .6.
.4.
A .4 art teacher for them.
And Rachel has experience as an elementary educator, so she would fit into this position nicely, as well as being the art teacher too.
Now, wouldn't there be a change, though, because was she receiving benefits from her position
She
that was
was-
split between two schools?
Yeah, and that's another reason, she may not have been getting full benefits from Guilford because of being .4 is less than 0.5%, and so you need to be you have to be half.
Because she was 0.6 in Green Street, she
So
was
she would be
already
getting
getting it.
0.6% of the benefits.
Oh,
I thought in this particular case, I thought she
I don't
didn't
want
sign up for the benefits.
to, she may not have,
Yeah.
she may have been.
That was reported to us
Yeah.
at some point when it came up in another context.
so that would be a slight increase in the cost then if her benefits would increase from 0.6 to full-time
For us.
for us. Yeah.
Okay, so we would need a motion.
I move that we accept this staffing change from Green Street.
And as part of that motion, Robin, are we also giving approval to Mark to go ahead and look for the other position?
Yes.
Okay. What, I have asked him to hold off a little bit until we figure out what we're actually getting from Title I, because a portion of this is Title I, .8. We still do not know what the federal government will give us. And so this will give us a little bit of leeway if we come in underfunded from what we have been in the past year. So if we're funded, as we have been, then I've told Mark we'll proceed, but if we are not, then we may not be able to fund that .4. This gives us some leeway.
So maybe we want to make the motion
Okay,
clearer.
I move that we accept the change in the position to create a full-time educator / academic support position at Green Street.
Well, it's art.
No, art, yeah.
It's art, not academic support and,
Art
Educator and.
No, it's both.
It's about,
Right,
right,
yeah.
what, I thought you said,
I'm just reading from the.
Yeah.
oh, I
She
thought you
better
said
say-
para
She's gonna
educator.
continue being the art educator
There it
and
is.
she's gonna do 0.4 of her job as academic support.
That should be clear now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Second.
Any more discussion? Spoon, you look confused, you're staring at me.
Well,
You're over on the other side, you're confusing me. I have
I'm
to keep
just
checking.
I'm taking a guess that .4 means 4/10 of a salary or 4/10
4
time
tenths
or
of her
something like
job.
that?
4/10 of full-time.
4/10 of full-time, yeah, okay.
but she'll be
But she's
full-time
still
now.
full-time because.
Yeah. Okay.
Adding this .4
Yeah.
will make her one.
She was 0.6 as
Yeah,
art,
made her
so now
full.
she's full-time because she's got 0.4 in the
It was a
academic
0.6
support.
art teacher and a 0.8 academic support teacher. And now we're having a person who's doing 0.6 art plus 0.4 academic support, and there's still half a job left over that nobody's gonna be doing.
0.4.
But that's what will be explored
Explored.
for, make sure that there's funding for it.
And who said we didn't do math at school board meetings?
Public school.
All in favor of this motion?
Hi.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. I had one question before we left Green Street. Could we possibly hear more about the therapy dog sometime, maybe even meet the dog?
You just want a
I
dog
wanna
going to
meet
the board
the dog.
meeting.
I know, yeah.
I wonder if
You
we-
should meet her.
Where does she live?
I don't know exactly where she lives. I don't think far.
Because if she lives far, it would be mean to ask.
The night that the counselors are coming in to
That
do
might
their
be a great
presentation, that
time.
might be
Oh,
a
yeah.
nice
Yeah,
excellent
yeah,
suggestion.
Yeah.
That's a
Thank you.
tradition. There was a teacher there for 20 or more years and brought her dog to class with her every day. When kids got too noisy, the dog barked. But Kelsey, on winter sports days, do the Green Street teachers go along as well, or is it a wider professional development opportunity?
So the para educators go every week to a different winter sport. And then the teachers go 1 week, and the other 4 we were using for professional development, working with Judy Maynard.
4 of the 5 weeks.
Yes.
Great. And is tomorrow the third Thursday? It
It,
is the third Thursday, but is it the parents coming in?
I'm not 100% sure. I can find that out for you.
I can come by and find out myself.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Okay, Deb.
Okay, I'm distributing invitations to attend our filming debut of the Brazilians documentary, which will be on February 23rd.
Is this the same one that you guys are
It
doing?
is the same one, the infamous one. We're going to have it at the BUHS multipurpose room. All of the EES staff, it's an in-service day for EES, so that will be the conclusion of our day. We'll view the film, it's about an hour, and we have a mindfulness instructor who is available to us through our employee assistance program, who will follow up with some very basic mindfulness activities for those who view the film. I attended a National Head Start Leadership Conference a couple of weeks ago, and this very much was the theme of the week from a national perspective. It was about how we are, how we're just, all the things that we're talking about tonight, about how this trend is sweeping the nation, and about how we can build hopefulness in our practitioners, in our teachers, in our in our employees' toolbox to be able to deal with this and actually help children build resilience, and it starts with each and every one of us. And so the mindfulness actually was some of the skills that are being discussed to help deal with being exposed to trauma. Is to build resilience through things like mindfulness, wellness, those kinds of very basic things that we often, trite-fully say, but we often forget. And so we are going to help people start with that very basic technique. So it's open to the public. We do have an RSVP at the bottom of the flyer, so we know how many people are coming, and again, it's just about an hour. Our Head Start, early Head Start funding new year starts March 1st, and we did in fact receive an award for 6 months, and that's to be expected at this point, given what's happening with the federal budget. We were excited to be able to receive that news actually as quickly as we did, so we're good to go for 6 months, and hopefully another 6 months, somewhere in that time frame, we'll receive the notification for the other half of our funding allotment. On April 14th, April is the month of the young child, so there will be lots of activities happening in the community. And Early Education Services is going to be sponsoring a family event at our 130 Burge Street location. The 14th is a Saturday. It looks like it will be something in the morning with lunch provided for participants. We'll be having different classrooms set up with activities for families to do with their children. And we're hoping to be able to distribute some books and maybe do some story time things, maybe bring in some puppets. So please pass the word that the community is invited. We, as you may remember, are on a contingency plan, or kind of a corrective action plan, because we were under-enrolled last year, and we have done much better with our enrollment up until the end of December. I may have reported this to you the last time we had a meeting. We actually were able to maintain our enrollment until we got to the end of December, and we had three we were under-enrolled by 3 families, and we attribute that to the loss of 3 families in Westminster who moved because of the double sessions that didn't meet their needs. So on that note, we are still struggling to find staff. We have a couple of promising candidates who have been interviewed or are in the process of being interviewed, and in that plan, we like to have them spend some time in the classroom, so we're going into that next stage with one of our promising candidates. Nonetheless, we need 3 to reopen the classroom. So simultaneously, I am also reaching out to the community to see if there are other kinds of creative partnerships we might do. I have one family childcare provider who was actually recommended to me by one of our policy council representatives, Molly Oglesby, who is the early childhood person in Wyndham Northeast. And I have had several conversations with this childcare provider. We are going to actually meet and look at a way that we might do some kind of a partnership, and that would look like, she said that some of the children who are in her family childcare program, she believes are Head Start eligible, and we could enroll those children in the program, and we could partner with her to actually deliver the Head Start educational part of the program in her home. We're also looking at some potential center-based partners in that area. So we're moving beyond believing that we might be the only place in town where we can make this happen. We're starting to get creative because it's, you know, it's a long, this double session is really taking a long time to remedy, and we don't want to lose any more families. So that's some of the work that I've been involved in.
Kind of sad though too, because we just paid to renovate and prepare that space.
Mm-hmm. We will use that space if we end up with, so there's one building with 2 early Head Start classrooms and one building with 2 Head Start classrooms. If we take the 13, so double sessions in Head Start are 13 children. If this is really, you know, lofty thinking, but if we were able to actually redistribute those 13 slots in partnerships in the community, which may be actually a wonderful thing, the space that we would make available would be used well, because we are now pretty tight for space. There aren't any places for families to meet, because every major space we have is classroom space. So we've had some conversations about that space not being wasted. Certainly would be put to good use. Our federal review is April 2nd, the week of April 2nd. There are 2 categories that we are participating in. One is called class, and that is specific to our 6 Head Start classrooms. And so 2 people will be coming in who are trained class reviewers. And class is a tool that is, research-based, evidence-based. It's consistently used across the country in Head Start programs to really assess how the classroom environment is responding to the needs of the children. And by classroom environment, I'm including the interactions with the teachers, interactions with children, the actual physical layout of the room, the way parents are greeted, the way parents are included, all of those kinds of things. We actually have 2 key coordinator staff members who are trained in this assessment process. So we're very fortunate that they have the perspective that's really been helping us to do well. And I would be surprised. I will be surprised if the reviewers don't find very positive things happening in our classrooms.
So when they have that federal review, do you need board members present?
So the second part of the review is called the Focus Area 2, and that we will need the board members. I have not heard yet from the team captain, who will be contacting me to sort of set the agenda and the schedule. As soon as I know that, I will let you know. This is a new review process, so I can't really tell you what to expect, except that you should be prepared to be available. In the past, we've generally had an opening session where the review team gets to meet the key movers and shakers, and then they do their thing, and they either will or will not reconvene at the end of the week to let us know what their findings are. So if that's the week of
So you guys
April
can put it on your calendars as possibly.
When are the dates?
The week of April 2nd.
Okay.
I have mentioned several times that we use a significant part of our Head Start training budget to offer college courses for our staff, and I'm really pleased to inform you that we currently have a class of 16 all EES students at CCB who are taking program leadership and administration. So that's pretty exciting. It's really teaching them to be strong leaders. And we have 3 teachers who were grandfathered into the program years ago before the requirements became more stringent. And I know that one, possibly all of them, started as parents in the program. And they are now just completing their 6th class in a series of 6 to earn their credential as a teacher apprentice. So that bumps them up on the career ladder. And it's pretty exciting. And actually, when I was in Washington, there was a lot of discussion about the teacher shortage crisis that we're seeing in this country. And there were programs that were highlighted, and their success really was in building teachers from their parent population. And that's very much the heart of what Head Start is all about. So we are doing that, and I wanted to give you some positive news. I guess the last piece of information I'm going to put forward is that we have a grant through the Child Development Division that it's federally funded money that passes through the state called Strengthening Families Program. And it's money that really helps us hone in on the families who are really struggling. And we have used that money to create and employ 2 behavior specialists in the program who've been with us now for, one I think has been with us for almost 5 years. That grant is coming to an end, and we are looking very seriously at ways to continue to fund those 2 positions. We have one here in Brattleboro and then a part-time position in Westminster. There are some statewide efforts to seek fundings again to continue this, but I did want to let you know that we are looking very seriously at ways to adjust our budget so that we can continue to have this much needed expertise on staff.
Have you considered a program like what Academy has with Antioch?
We have, you mean the STEP program?
No, the Antioch interns that are there.
Oh. We'd really like to keep the people that we have because they're highly skilled. And I mean, we would consider any and all options if need be. We've reached out to Antioch many times, and sometimes we've had interns. I'm not sure that we would find those that have this. Although I'm hearing now that there are college courses that are becoming more robust in the area of teaching how to deal with behavioral challenges, which is hopeful.
Yes, we have several, I mean, we have, I know on my staff, I have one person who's in the master's program at Antioch, working towards her BCBA. And that's an extremely intensive program. So, I mean, in the area, that's probably the strongest program we have. That's really, that I've heard of in talking to Greg Stoller.
So I will reach out to them.
Okay.
So Andy talked about the legislators coming to meet with the administrators on Monday. As a result of that, Marisa Duncan-Hawley, Shelley Wilson, and I have been asked to testify in Montpelier tomorrow. So we'll be getting up and leaving pretty early tomorrow morning because we need to be there by 9 and talk about funding, the issues that are facing us as a supervisory union, the fact that we do have fewer students, but we have students with much higher needs than what we've ever seen in the past. And if you're following the legislature at all this year, you'll know that there are lots of funding discussions and legislation being put forth, so we will be talking about that. The other thing, I have a letter. Please accept this letter of resignation from the position of assistant principal at Academy School. I'm very grateful to you and to the staff, students, families, and school board for the support and collaboration I enjoyed during my time at Academy. Sincerely, Mary Ross. So I need you to accept the resignation.
Can you remind
Stare at me
us?
for a minute.
I'm like, neighbor, do
She
tell.
took a 1-year position at Vernon, and
Yeah.
Kelly's position is also a 1 year, so that's what this is
So, and-
officially.
So is
Right,
Mary
so-
continuing on in Vernon?
In Vernon, yes.
Okay.
She is? Oh,
Yes.
good, successful coming. So we had approved prior just a 1-year
Leave.
leave.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now we've approved the resignation, and what does that mean about?
No, we have not approved it yet.
Well,
We need to
if
vote
we
on it.
approve,
Yeah.
right, if we do that, then what does that mean for our vice principal position?
We will need to open that up to interviews.
And the intern gets to interview, if she so desires.
I would think that while Principal Patchouli is still there,
You may have something else in mind.
yeah, that he would do it.
Open it up means the contractual obligation is to post it.
Post it.
Wouldn't open it up and advertise nationally, for example.
That was kind of cool. Okay, so we need a motion.
Oh, go ahead, David. You haven't made one yet. No, go.
Okay. I move to accept Mary's resignation.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Kind of miss seeing Mary, though.
Yeah. Do you want to do the other?
Yes, I forgot when I reported. I have resignation from Matt Johnston, who was our PE teacher, that he will be resigning effective the end of this school year, and we'll be posting that quickly, very soon rather, and begin a search and interview process in the coming weeks. He's been with us for 7 years, and he is going out west.
Go West, yeah. Need another,
I move that we accept with regret Matt Johnson's resignation.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Everything else of mine is in new
In the
business.
new business,
Yeah.
okay. So folks, we're at 6:07 or so. Maybe we can go quickly through committee reports. Policy Council,
We're having,
Meeting toward the end of the month,
Yeah.
the last week of the month. We met in Westminster last time. It's going to be a fundraiser in Westminster. A walkathon, runathon.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, walkathon, I think.
And nothing really noteworthy, a couple new hires, still looking for more. I think that's about it.
We did have a bit of a contest for nominations for parents from this program to be representatives at the New England Regional Board level, because there was a Vermont parent opening on that board. And we had expressed interest from 3 folks,
Yeah.
but actually only one submitted their
Oh, really?
intention or their campaign speech, and they were officially voted in last week at the state meeting. So Lloyd McKenzie is our Vermont rep to the New England Board.
all right, so energy? Not anything going on, right?
No.
And Act 46, we've got this down, and we also have the alternative governance. Lyle, maybe you can give us an update of what's happening in the state level, if we've heard anything?
The last I heard was in maybe the middle of January that school boards would be contacted to meet with the Rebecca Holcomb and talk about what their proposal is, and that they were going to try to divide the state into 3 sections. So they would be meeting with the northern tier and one portion, the middle tier and the southern tier, but they had not yet organized that. So we're still waiting to hear.
Never goes away. And then alternative governance subcommittee, I saw in the paper that the proposal had been submitted.
Yeah, well, there was another deadline, January 31st, so a revised one was submitted and an addendum. And basically some information that Lyle just shared, that they're working their way down the state. So we'll probably be closer to May than February.
And were there any changes in what they submitted from what we've seen last?
Not of consequence. The addendum had talked about equity and had the legal opinions on the proposals that we made, and had some other comments from Jim Kane offered some advice on how to set up the fund, and there were a couple other comments. Actually, they were from Nicole and Brett James. You've already seen those.
The ones that I had asked for.
Yeah, parts of those were in too.
Is that posted on the website somewhere?
I thought I sent an email yesterday, and everybody with the link.
I got it.
I did receive it.
I sent on the SU.
I don't use that SU when it's not set up.
Well, you need to, because.
No, I can't set it up. I spent 4 hours on it, and I had technical people. I'm done. It does
Because
not work.
that's where
in
I
my
send
system.
you everything.
No, so you can send me
No, I
whatever
can
you
put
want
you
with
on
that, but
both.
I'm not seeing it, and I won't see it. And I'm done. I do
But
not
then
have
you need
work
to
on it.
share that with us
I'm
beforehand.
sharing it
because
now.
I've been emailing you stuff.
Is there
That's
anybody in the
school board
room that
related.
hasn't had a similar experience?
I'm not
So I'll put you,
moving
I'll put
forward.
both of you.
It's, no, absolutely was losing it by that time. Okay, so we go on to finance. Nothing new, right?
No, everybody else besides you should have received the final audit report because that was forwarded to the SU email. So hopefully everybody else received that from me. I'll
And
forward that off to your
Well,
regular
waiting for the
email.
opportunity to read it.
I know.
I'm going to say that all of you could read it for me. The executive committee update is.
We haven't met since last meeting,
What was
so,
that?
This
but-
meeting.
since the SU meeting.
So, to fill David and spoon
Well,
in on that?
Everybody at the SU level asked for the finance committee to go back and separate because everybody would like to have, or the majority of people would like to have a separate finance and a separate executive. So we are
So
going to revisit it.
The
again.
job description that had been circulated had everything under it, and so the suggestion was to separate into personnel and finance type things. And then we could have an executive committee that would deal more with personnel and a finance that would deal more with finance. So,
What personnel?
Well,
well,
because
like hiring a
everything's.
supervisor was part of
Well,
it.
it's also, and it's
superintendent.
also,
Yeah,
it-
yeah.
And
anything
also
that's
special ed
with
people.
special ed.
Do you like that idea?
What I like is the fact that there will be a body of people that we don't have to pull the full SU committee together, because with more people being hired at the SU level, there are more
Yeah.
personnel issues.
Yeah.
And so in order to have someone that I can go to quickly and say, we're gonna need to pull this group together because we have to make some
I
decisions.
didn't realize it was different than us. I mean, we basically hire you. You know, I'm surprised that there's anybody that has to, that you have to take those through.
Yeah,
I
but
think
it's
it's
special
also-
ed because they're not individual
Right, it's a lot
districts, so
more
you have
people.
to.
People,
Yeah.
exactly.
They
Great.
didn't want to have to wait for like an every 3
Yes,
weeks meeting to
and
be able
right,
to.
to try to
make
get a
hire.
quorum of
So
18
that's
is very
a
difficult.
summary of an hour and a half discussion. Diversity?
Yes.
Anything from diversity?
Yeah, we just met, and most of the meeting was talking about the event for May 4th, which is now going to be at the Sanel Building on Flat Street for an indoor venue where the art can remain all month long. There's hopefully going to be art made by the schools, and then there's going to be performances and activity booths and all kinds of stuff, and the location of that is still being determined, whether we can get the adjacent lots on Flat Street from the developer to let us do it there, or we might do it up on Elliott Street right above. But hoping that it's going to be a really big and lively event, and there's a brochure and some articles and readings and discussion protocols that are being finalized and will be sent out to all of the administrators and teachers so that they can start as a staff discussing how they want to start these conversations and make projects with their kids. So we're hoping for not just artwork, but for any kind of participation that teachers want to do with their class, and if there's something that could be brought or performed on the day, that's all the better. As far as music performances or anything that a teacher and their students develop and want to bring Because the more kids that come to perform or have their artwork shown, then the more families will come. So we're hoping that we get a lot of participation in this so that it's a well-attended and worthwhile event.
Anything for unfinished business? I don't know of anything that's on the agenda. Moving on to 1%. We have all seen these. Been a couple of weeks ago. If anybody has questions, now's the time.
I said one request, I don't know if we've ever done anybody attending a research conference, but I think that's a great idea. I would like to, I don't want to make it contingent upon whoever that person is coming and telling us about it, but I would love to hear. I don't know if I can remember the topic right now, but it's something.
I have
definitely-
it open.
What's the theme for the conference, the research?
Which one? Is it the meeting press information?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The dreams, possibilities,
Yeah.
and necessity
Yeah.
of public education. So whoever that person is, whichever school she's in, I don't remember who.
Rachel Glickman.
Yeah,
But,
Academy.
Academy.
Oh, yeah, would love to have her come and give us a report and kind of talk about what the findings were in the research. That'd be great.
Okay, so
My only question was on the last one on the Maple Leaf, just because the teacher had a different cost, and then the little note, it must be from Barb, it's 3 days, but I think she had 4 days.
834 and then
We ran out of
7.
Okay.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
So it's 3 days, so that's,
So we had to cut it, we may have had to cut it down.
okay,
Well, it says instead of 208, it's 219.
right, but then it's 3, but she had 4 up here.
Right, so she cut it down. So
Yeah.
we had to cut it down to.
Okay, all right.
Good catch.
Any other questions? Can we have a motion on this then? To approve the
We
1%?
approve the last of the 1% grants as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So this requires a signature on every one of these by chairman, clerk, and member. So I will start, but then other people are going to sign too. Moving on to the bus stop request. This one seems pretty straightforward, Lyle.
So we had a request from Mark Kerrigan to have an additional stop in the West Brattleboro and Carriage Hill Stockwell Drive neighborhood. Apparently there used to be a stop there. It was taken away when the high school and elementary schools changed times. I spoke with Carol Lynch from the First Student Bus Company. It would add 7 to 10 minutes, but would still get the bus to school on time at the high school in the morning, and would still get the bus there around 3:30 in the afternoon. So,
And there was a whole thing about how much more safe
Yeah.
everything will be.
instead of kids walking down to Route
Going down
9,
the hill.
yeah, with no sidewalks in that area.
So we would make a motion to approve an
An
added,
additional
is it an added cost, or is that why we're asked about it, or just to say
No,
that we
you're
approve
the
of
one
the
that
bus
has
stop?
to. Yeah.
Is there a
It's a
shelter
statutory.
associated with that?
No bus shelters anywhere. Kids
There's-
stand in
Right,
rain.
kids, they don't come out when it's snowing.
No, we have 7 days then?
Right, that's what we had.
I move that we approve the addition of the bus stop in the Stockwell Drive neighborhood.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then my only question, clerk needs to sign these for coming away. My only question on that is, did that really have to go through all that much work? Could we just have called the bus company, or, I mean, especially since he's the police chief?
He contacted the bus company, he contacted the transportation committee at the town level. I think if he had known that he could just come here, then it would have not, he would not have had to go through all this work, but there's a
I think
petition
all he would have had to
here.
do to me is say, that's what we need, and we would have been good.
Well, and I'm surprised we couldn't just sing it, it had existed before, we couldn't just automatically put it back on without the school board.
There are many.
With
Well,
kids and
we are the
transportation,
person
I'm
that's
pretty
like
sure we gotta be
employing the
official.
bus
Yeah.
company though,
Yeah.
right? So that's why we have to approve.
Right, but it was already, you know, but it wasn't,
doesn't cost
it's
the
not
bus
really a
company
change
anymore.
because it had existed
It's a change
until,
back.
Yeah,
you know, it's not
It
like
seemed
we're
like a lot
having
of
to
work
drive
there.
out of the way.
right.
They drive right by.
All right, diversity
So- oh,
training.
sorry. When I talked with Carol Lynch, we will start, that will change
February?
after February break, yes.
Diversity? Robin, following up, you've
Um,
sent us a couple of
yes.
proposals that
So-
we've seen on email. Those come
Yeah.
to my email somehow.
Well, because this conversation started before we got those WSESU emails, so I was still operating from my Gmail address. But, I'll make sure I never email you at that address.
It has to
Never
do with
even
the
do that.
Exchange 365, and Microsoft, it's all.
Yeah, so I had talked to these two trainers, Mary Gannon and Dottie Morris, and asked them each to submit to us a sort of an outline or sketch of what they thought a training would be like. That would be helpful for the goals that I mentioned. And I did also say that this training for our board was the first step in the ultimate goal of creating more equity in our school district so in Dottie's proposal, she went a lot into what that would look like as well. But when I spoke to her, it was just about providing the training for the board initially. So I don't know if we want to make a decision on this tonight, or if everyone wants to kind of take these and read through and think about it, because I did just send it today, so.
My first question was, when were we hoping to do the training? Did we have a date?
We said after the election, and then it wasn't
So
specified,
today.
but I think that it seems like a lot of our meetings are full through the end of the school year, so.
Probably
And Dottie
fall.
mentioned she's gonna be away, I think during May also, so maybe it would end up being like in June or something like that. Whenever we have
June or August, maybe.
a time in our schedule that works for one of these trainers.
And
I
what's
could
the
make a
cost?
decision on that. If
On the
that's
time?
the question, whether we could do so tonight, I'm prepared to.
Okay, you have a strong feeling on this already?
Yeah, I read, it's between one of those two,
Yeah.
and in fact, although I thought the first one I saw would have been more than adequate, when I looked at the second one you just sent out, I was even more impressed.
Which one did you get first?
Well, the,
Okay,
Yeah.
I couldn't remember if I had sent that already, so then I sent that again today after Dottie, since I wasn't sure which one. Yeah.
Mary Gann was the first one I
Yeah.
read, and probably qualified herself. But when I read the second one, I was more impressed, and because I thought this person seemed to have a broader and deeper understanding and a much more complete program. So that's,
I mean,
so that would be,
you want to make
That's
that a
how I
motion?
well, I'll make a motion then that
Okay.
we accept Dottie Morris to handle this program.
Any second?
I'll second it so we can.
Yes,
Yeah,
we can
any
discuss,
discussion,
yeah. As from talking to them, I felt like the only advantage that I could see clearly that Mary would have over Dottie was that she has a lot more specific knowledge of our schools. And Dottie is from Keene, so she's not as close, but that could also be an advantage too, that she's kind of an outside person who doesn't have preconceived notions about what is gonna happen, can and can't be done. I kind of agree with Spoon as far as the proposals, that Dottie's definitely seemed a lot more detailed, and the specific goals that she wrote down, I think, are in line. I really feel like either of them would do a great training, and they are also colleagues, so that was something that each of them had mentioned to me, was we could do it both of us together if you guys want. And that would be a slightly different proposal, I think, than what either of them put as their own training.
One of them, sorry.
What, I wanted to know the cost.
Yeah, that was the other
of
thing I was gonna
those,
say.
And then, I mean, and the time, because
Oh,
as nice as Dottie's is, we
Yeah.
can't afford 3
Yeah.
board meetings without anything else on the schedule. This would have to be scheduled
Separate.
separately.
Yes.
And
Well, she said in the email that she sent with this was like, this might be too much for your board. you know, we could scale this back, but I would want to make sure, or that might even be in here, actually.
Yeah. she did
If
have
we're
it
not
back
able
up.
to do the ideal number of sessions with school board members, then we will condense. The main goals will be to make the invisible visible and the unconscious conscious. So that's at the last section, specifics for school board workshop. So she's willing to tailor it down to what we have the availability for. She said that as she spoke with her employer, she works for Keene State, that this would fall into the outreach part of her role there. Even though we're across the river, that's still considered the community of Keene State, and so she would be providing this at no cost to our school district because it's covered under her salary. Mary said she preferred not to give me a rate when she sent this because she said she would negotiate it with the board and that she doesn't want cost to be a barrier to doing this, but that she would need to be compensated.
Okay.
So we could, if we were more interested in going with hers, we could talk about like, well, what money do we feel is appropriate for this and then see if that flies with her. But it's not gonna be less than 0, so that's the other offer.
Spoon?
I would also be willing, maybe I need to learn a little bit more about what Dottie is offering. But to have it, if it feels worthwhile, I would be willing to do a day or half a day, like a 3 or 4 hour block on not outside of our school board work.
Like an in-between school board meetings,
That's-
4-hour session or something like that.
That's typically, well, typically in my experience, it's us in the town, but that's the way the town does these. They just did a gender and, what was it, abusive behavior by guys.
Sexual
I can't think
harassment.
Thank you. These words don't come easily to my tongue. And it's, you know, it's all being planned as a separate thing. I think the main thing is to do it right. And it's a goal that we established, and we want to make sure that we get what we need to know to figure out what we need, if anything needs to happen.
Can we back up to that goal too? Remind me, just because I don't remember exactly what we wanted. I remember saying, yeah, we wanted to be trained in
Yeah.
diversity, but why did we want to be trained? What were we trying to do?
Well, the first thing that I brought up was that I would like all of the people working in the schools to become more trained to recognize how they can bring more equity to the schools. And part of that is the equity on the staff, or the, you know, diversity appropriately representing the
Student population.
diversity of the town and of the students. Then also the teacher knowledge and the curriculum. Now, interestingly, there was a bill introduced last week in the legislature it's called something like Ethnic Studies Bill. But what the bill is to create curriculum standards for K through 12 education for including this type of stuff in the curriculum. So if that's something that the state is going to be moving towards anyway, then I just think it seems like it makes a lot of sense to do this. So anyway, once I said like, let's do that, then the board seemed to agree like, okay, well, if we're going to be discussing making some sort of change, then we should make sure we all understand what we're talking about first. And that was what this training is meant to do.
So both of them seem to be attacking that topic.
Yeah. I mean, I think they both, I had met and talked with each of them for a while, so I think they understand what we wanted pretty well.
So a motion on the floor, are we ready to vote on it?
So can I just make, based on what Kim said, could I make a friendly amendment that we try to set up an initial 2-hour session with her to see whether we want to, or I don't know how to say this, to find out if we want to do 3 or if we need to do 3.
Well, do we want to do a 2-hour session to
Yeah,
find out
that's
we want to
what I
do
don't
3?
Yeah.
Or do we want to have an
yeah.
initial?
So never mind my friendly
Would
amendment.
we really, never mind.
No,
Okay.
I just-
I think we'd want to, yeah, I think we
Let's-
want to make that
I think
But if
2
you're
hours
gonna
is
make a
good.
motion, we should talk about what is the
What
training,
we
then I
want.
can go back to the person and say, okay, we all picked you and we wanna do this length of a
Yeah,
training.
because I think if we either do a 2-hour or we do the 3 sessions, because if you're doing the initial 2-hour, everything's gonna be condensed, and then,
I think we do
We do
2 hours
similar.
and we see whether we feel like we need more, like what you were saying, Dave.
Well,
I'm
I
not
don't
sure
know
how I
about
would
that.
know.
Because I feel like if she's doing if she's thinking like, I'm gonna do this into 3 2-hour sessions, and then I'll give you chapter 1 of the 3-chapter book. And then if we say like, nah, we learned it all, don't need chapter 3, like, if we just said, oh, we like this, but we only have 2 hours to spend, then give us like the overview, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm thinking do the condensed version, and if we come out of it saying, oh, we really need to understand something more, then we can come back and ask for more.
And do you guys think that we wanna do this like as one of our summer board meetings, or like an in-between meetings thing that's
Typically
just
in
a
the summer,
training?
we don't meet in July anyway, and people aren't always around in July. and
So we wouldn't
But
need it
it's
for
also
meetings,
because the
are you saying?
administrators need some time off. I mean, but we could do it, if we're all here at one. at
Well,
some point.
I think that if we
Do it
should
with
do it
the
at a
board.
time when the administrators can
And
attend.
the administrators, I think, yeah, I
Oh,
think
really? Was she-
if we're
I
paying
thought she
for
was
the
making a
administrators,
second-
well, we're not paying, but
It's the
still.
second phase.
no, but I mean, if we
After
have this opportunity, I think it's good for administrators to be there.
We all want to be trained together, I'm sure. Right?
Well, what she seems to be proposing is sessions for us, for the school board members first,
June.
and then consistent, school administrators, consistent with those provided to school board members, focus on the work they do within the system.
Looking at you.
So it's gonna focus more on the work they do within the school system, institutional and structural, and how it manifests itself.
When she made this proposal, she just went onto a lot of what I talked about as like the reason why we're pursuing this training. So I feel like in her ideal plan, she was talking about everything that I brought up as like an ultimate goal. But I think for right now, I don't want to look at like all of the other stuff she said of like step 1, school board, step 2, administrators, step 3, teachers, students, and parents, as if we're embarking on that whole entire plan. Because I know also, you know, Lyle and Julianne and I interviewed another person for that, so I feel like we should consider that whole piece of it as like a separate thing that maybe we might choose to have Dottie continue this work with us, or maybe we choose another person. So I would like to consider the school board workshop to be the members who normally come to a school board meeting, that would include the administrators, and if there's something that is decided on that we're gonna hire and provide for all of the administration teaching staff, then that will be another whole different discussion.
Because that isn't always our purview to do. So, so you want to have a time, is that what you're saying, before? As a
No,
part of this motion?
a length of time, yeah,
I said we do the condensed 2 hours, that's my friendly
okay.
amendment.
Well,
to
she
the
didn't
motion.
say the 2 hours, I'm just mentioning that came from
Oh.
David. She just said, we will condense.
Well, let's tell her condense into 2 and see what she
Yes.
says.
What she was recommending was 6 hours, right?
Right. How about if I
In
just,
3 sessions.
can I make a motion that
You
we,
can't make another motion, you can only amend the one motion.
okay, can I amend Spoon's motion to say we will, ask Dottie Morris to do a condensed training for the board? And could we just leave it open
Yeah.
to
Do you want
me
to put in
discuss with her
there
about
June?
how long is it gonna be, how long can we do this in? How short can we do it in? I mean,
Perfect, can you
Yeah.
put in there also
And how many
June,
people too.
in June?
in June, okay.
We have one meeting scheduled for the 6th, which is our special one with policy council, and then the 20th would be the 2nd. When's school get out? Do we have that?
Right now, the 19th is the last teacher day, the last
When do the kids stop?
student day
15th
is the
still?
14th.
14th?
15th third
But
graduation.
one more snow day, every snow day from here on in means we're back.
But it was the 14th always instead of the 15th, I have
In services 18 and 19?
Yes, for teacher.
Okay, you said June 6th and June 20th were the choices,
No,
right?
June 20th.
June 20th.
June 6th is already
Yeah,
taken.
we
June 6th
need
is
to post
policy
Okay.
council.
Okay, just June 20th. Okay, I will ask her and hopefully she's available on that date.
Okay, so we need to vote on that motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Well, let me hear the motion again.
Um,
It's to
I can't remember what you initially said, Spoon.
talk to Dottie, right? That's where we're going?
The motion was to have Dottie Morris conduct a
Right.
training for the board
Yeah.
that was a condensed training.
And Kim will.
On June 20th. That was the end of the month. On June 20th, a condensed training by Dottie
All right,
Morris.
yeah. Ask her what she thinks would be an ideal condensed training. Two, I like 4 myself, hours.
Yeah, so I'll let her know that time is,
Separate,
it's normally a
there's
2-hour meeting, but if she thinks we
Yeah.
can't do this in 2, how about 3, how about 4? I'll just see what
We're
she
still looking at
Yeah, we can table that.
attaching it to a regular board meeting.
Having it.
The 20th,
be
yes.
the June
Yeah,
20th.
instead of.
It would be the board.
Be an actual meeting.
There we go. I got lost. We voted, but Spoon was confused. So I think we should all vote again on this
Okay.
motion to make it official, because you were not sure
Yeah.
what you were voting on. All in favor of this motion?
Aye.
Okay, good. Moving on, I want to skip a little bit because we're running out of time
When you
here.
voted on the motion, you didn't you voted on the motion to amend.
No, it was a
No.
friendly amendment, so we voted on the motion with the friendly
We
amendment.
voted on it?
I had written that Spoon made a motion to accept Dottie Morris to lead the diversity training. I documented the conversation that you had, the discussion. And then I wrote in here that Jill's friendly amendment to the motion was to condense the training to 2 hours. Robin will talk to Dottie to see what kind of condensing is possible. The training's hoping to be held the end of June, and then motion passed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah,
We're all right, I think.
it didn't have to be.
Parliamentarily blessed. So,
So the vote was on the motion.
we're moving on we're skipping integrated field review for a minute and space and programming, and we're moving to academy principal search.
So the advertisement for the academy principal position went out January 29th. We put it on School Spring, as well as internally, which means it goes to all people within WSESU. The application date is February 16th.
Tomorrow, 2 days.
2 days, yeah. But that will have been open for 3 weeks.
It's been advertised for 3 weeks
January
It will have
29th.
been,
and only in school spring.
School Spring and internally.
Internally.
Your website, your district website.
With district website, yeah, which I consider internally, but yeah. Yeah. I met with the academy staff on February 5th to talk about what our process will be. So we'll establish a screening committee that will look through the applications, screen the applications. What we'll be looking for is a variety of people, some with more extensive time as a principal. We'll look for some that have sort of a medium amount, and we'll look for some that are new principals. We'll take those to an initial round of interviews, which will be on March 9th. That committee will pare it down to 3 or 4 candidates. Those candidates will be asked back for a second interview on March 14th. And then there'll be focus groups of final interviews on March 19th. So Andy is putting together a list of possible parents. I will need a board member for the initial screening committee. That meets on March 5th.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay, thanks, I was hoping it was you. March 9th and March
I feel like
14th.
that's a motion
But then I will need as many of the board members as we can have on March 19th.
Is that set in stone?
Yes, those dates are set in stone.
What was the first date that you
So the
said?
first one is
19th
March
is a Monday, I was
5
about to
at
do
3:30 at
something
central
else that
office, and that's when we review all the candidates.
Well, were any additional efforts made to try and find qualified candidates of color?
What's that? There's something that you check on School Spring, can you tell me about?
Yeah, there are publications that you can do through School Spring, and I've used them on several occasions. They're very expensive, I've not used it for administrator, but I've used it for teaching positions. It's very expensive, and I've never gotten a candidate. But you can do it at each publication. They're highly expensive. Probably around like
That's something
$2,000
I'll
a
check to
pop.
see if we check
Yeah,
that.
you know, speaking for myself, I would like us to make that investment, and I think even, and maybe extend the deadline so that it's more realistic for people to have time to process that and send the application. I think if we're gonna, you know, if we're gonna enter into this diversity training, and if we see this diversity changing in the community, I think if here's an opportunity to, you know, make a really significant contribution to diversifying our workforce at the leadership level. And I think we need to, I mean, I was going to suggest that we try and find somebody, I'm not sure if the Vermont Partnership does it or not, but try to find somebody who actually seeks those, you know, tries to identify. Obviously, they have to be highly qualified, or
Yep,
you know,
for
you
sure.
can't just hire somebody because they're.
My only concern with extending the deadline too much beyond this is that we do not get highly qualified candidates, because principal jobs are open now, and people are being hired now. And so if we wait and put all of this off until April, then that lessens the number of candidates. If we put it off until May, which we found last year, we get next to none.
That was the Vernon situation.
That was the Vernon situation. We have so
But
few
the deadline
candidates.
now is the 16th?
The 16th. So we
if we
could,
put it off to the
to another
2nd
week?
of March, we're off 2 weeks.
yep.
And, well, I need to hear from other people, because it's gonna cost us money.
It's gonna cost,
How much is money?
apparently, a lot of money.
What are we talking with a lot of money?
Well, I haven't used them in a couple of years, so I don't want you to quote me, and I don't want to give you a number that's wrong, but I was shocked. My recollection is it was somewhere around $2,000.
To put it on School Spring.
No,
it's
School
not
Spring, we
that
have an
way.
account SU-wide, an annual fee we pay. But to go from School Spring to specific publications that target, or have not target, but have a base, like there's one for African Americans, for example. Those are, well, specialty publications, and they're very expensive. And
When
actually
you
very
say
expensive.
publications, is this like a paper thing that comes out that people read, or is it like a website?
Good question, 'cause I believe nowadays it's probably a website.
Probably all.
Because if it's a paper thing, we're not gonna get
No, we
anybody.
don't
that's
have
on
any.
Probably a
the next 2
website.
weeks. But if it's on a website, then
Yeah.
we read it.
Yeah.
I could contact Vermont Partnership and see what they would recommend.
That'd be
See
great,
if they
yeah.
can somehow post it with their site, with what they know as well, to see.
So are we still talking about delaying if you do that, or?
I am hoping that we don't delay. I can extend the deadline, but still
Keep the other meetings.
keep
as
the other
scheduled.
meetings
There are,
as.
I can just tell you from being on the Vermont Principal Association Board, there is in excess of 25 principal openings right now announced.
So it's gonna be competitive.
It's gonna be
Yeah.
competitive.
And
Yeah, but what it was.
there's, obviously there'll be more, and there's a general shortage. And then Vernon, I think, would you have 7 applicants, 8 applicants?
Yeah, very few.
But that was also because it was at the very end
It
of the
was at the
school
end of the year. But
So
very,
if we're gonna make a motion and give direction to the administration, what I'm hearing out of this is that we would like Lyle to talk to the partnership
Mhm.
and then, but not delay anything for town meeting.
Just extend the deadline.
Extend the deadline
but not delay the
without delaying the other
And
dates.
Diana may have some information, some ideas as well.
yeah, I've
Probably
We're
already
pretty-
talked to her, yeah.
close.
Do you want to, is there a possibility of us approving or pre-approving allocating money to list it with the publications that Andy mentioned? Since this is such a tight deadline, I feel like we should mention that now if we're gonna do it, because otherwise it'll be too late by the next meeting.
I think just,
I don't think there is any way to do that.
I think most of the little bit that I understand about this is that most of they're journals for people
Okay.
that like African American school administrators,
Uh-huh.
professional benevolent associations,
Right.
something like that. And they have journals and they have networks, and that's where it goes, and they do their membership organizations, and you do have to pay to use them. I don't think it would be like an ad in the Boston Globe, but because
Right.
it's directly those interest organizations.
I'm just asking, do we need to put any money towards doing this, or do you think it can be all done just through telling these groups about us wanting to publicize
I
the
think
position?
I will contact Vermont Partnership tomorrow.
Okay.
And Curtis will probably be able to say, it's gonna cost you. I don't know what you wanna do with that. If you wanna say a sum not to exceed, if that's what I'm told.
Okay.
Is there a list in the state somewhere where a teacher in Vermont can simply look up all the jobs available?
That's
School
School
Spring,
Spring, but it's for the whole country.
But you hit Vermont, and it
But-
brings up everything
yeah.
in Vermont.
Brings up-
Well, should we move to approve, or whatever, we just set up, not to exceed $2,000? And see if we can,
I would say 3,000, just because
Yeah,
this
because
was.
he's
Okay.
running
Okay,
years
I-
ago.
I didn't know if I was the only one that wanted to do it, so I didn't want to.
Yeah.
Is that the 2,000, when you said yes to my question, is that the $2,000 place?
No.
No, that's the one that we already paid for listing all the jobs, and it's already listed on that.
Yeah, okay.
This is the 2,000 or
This is
3,000
why
whatever
it's
is for
just
the
like a
targeted
national,
journals for African American
Yeah.
educators, or I
Oh.
assume there's ones for Latino educators, or
Oh, okay.
any targeted,
The School Spring, you
minority
go and,
groups.
it's for people who are looking for jobs in Vermont, they click on Vermont and there are the jobs.
Yeah.
These are to actually reach out to people and let them know that we're looking for particular candidates.
School Spring is particular for educators,
Yeah, just,
Yeah.
right, where these publications are particular of interest for their audience. So in their publication, it wouldn't be just education, it might be engineers and
Oh,
architects and
okay.
so forth.
So it's not an African American educators journal, it would be just.
There may be one that is that as well.
Employment
but-
journal of all kinds of.
Correct,
things.
so I think you may have both, but they're all quite expensive.
That's what I
Thank you,
asked.
that'd be great.
Okay, so should we
How
say
many-
that motion?
Have we received any applications yet?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Some,
Uh,
none.
I would say.
Decent quantity?
I would say not as many as I had expected, probably a half dozen.
Okay.
Some are candidates that we get every single time there's an opening.
May or may not even be qualified.
That
That's
may or may
always-
not.
They haven't been hired so far, so that kind of.
Which is
tells you
shocking.
something.
And therein lies the problem that
In this area, in New England, and throughout the country, their applicant pools for jobs, for teaching jobs is way down. And for principals, it is significantly down. And principals like superintendents aren't lasting. In Vermont, the turnover annually for principals right now in Vermont is 25 to 30%. And as I said, there's already 25 or 26 posted openings. There are some openings right now for this year where people have left, and they
Right.
haven't.
A new one last night.
They just
can't be
leave the school in the middle of the year?
These are very tough jobs. I mean, if you,
Yeah.
when you get home tonight, there's so many things that, this is my 34th year, so I have some history and can remember what the job used to be like. There's so many things that I do in a day that didn't even exist, 20 years ago. Today in Florida, 14 high school kids were murdered in a school. So these are things that just keep happening, but the job is so different. The stress and the issues you have to deal with. It's funny because, so many teachers don't want to go to be a principal, and so many college students don't want to be teachers.
How does our principal wages compare with comparable states like New Hampshire or Maine?
Well, we're comparable, throughout New England, I think we're pretty comparable with northern New England. Connecticut, Massachusetts,
Yeah,
we're
that's
not.
why I said.
We're not necessarily comparable. But in terms of the state, I think we fare well. In, state of Vermont, our salaries are competitive. New Hampshire, Maine, we're competitive. But Connecticut, we're not close to. I mean, Connecticut principals are making more than superintendents in Vermont.
Yeah,
Um,
twice as much as I'm making now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we do have, in this district, a reputation for being a good place to work, and a really supportive environment. And our people, our administrators stay for a long time.
Right, which
So-
is why it's surprising only.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and when people find that out, something's working down there, I want to go see what's going on, so.
So I'm confused as
hopeful.
to if we even have a motion on the floor, where are we at now, guys?
Let's make a motion to allocate not more than $3,000 towards listing this with targeted publications as recommended by Curtis Reed.
So,
Not publications, website.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Websites, yes.
Because publications are pointless.
Yeah.
Yes, agreed.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
All right. So I'm gravely concerned because this agenda somehow got dropped off the main point of this agenda, and we're now at like 10 minutes left, and the preparation for town meeting reps has not even been talked about, which is what I thought we were really doing. So, and I think that the space and programming current and future needs was also really important. So we have not gotten to the most important ones. Integrated field review, we can hand out something and discuss that later.
Yep, sure.
So we'll put that onto the next agenda for next time. But I really would like us to think for a moment about what we're gonna talk about to the town reps, and then I guess we come back to this space and whatever. Because we have we have no more meetings in February. March 7th, we go to the counselor's social worker, perhaps a dog. I'm very excited we get a dog. And then we report to the town rep. So we kind of need to know and give some ideas as to what we want to hear from administrators in particular before they, so they have some time to prepare.
I have an idea.
Let's hear it.
Since we've been talking about it a lot, and we kind of keep coming, just again tonight, we came back to, this is what we want to present to the town meeting reps. I wonder if we might ask the administrators, since they generally come up with the best ideas around this, how could we present the things that you've heard us talking about, and all the things that we talked about in terms of all your schools this year? How can we convey that, the breadth of that, to the town meeting reps?
I'd love to have that conversation, but I need to have a much more broad thing first in my head, so that's like I'm in an outline form here. What are the general topics that we want to talk about, and then we could go into specifics of that one. I think that's good.
I feel like the takeaway from the whole thing should be like, yes, we have falling student numbers, but the needs of the students are increasing vastly. And somebody said that earlier tonight. I think that's sort of the kernel of what we want to say. And then I think
I'd like to also caveat with that and say, but we're doing a good job.
yes, that was the next piece I was going to say. So then maybe we could also talk about some of the things that we already have instituted to help care for kids and like the social worker and other supportive wraparound programs that we have going on, and as well as all of the stuff that the schools are doing to become trauma-informed teachers and schools, so that at every level, staffing and teaching and other wraparound things, how our schools are working to meet these needs, not just to say everything's horrible at the end.
That was in an outline form even. So under falling student numbers, anything else we want to say about that?
I mean, I don't feel like they are falling that much in
They've been
Brattleboro.
stable for the last
So
few
let's,
years.
so let's look at some actual numbers.
Yes.
And I think maybe at that point, we might want to also talk about the equalized pupil number, the great mystery that it is.
I would rather, that's like opening a rabbit hole that we would do.
But that's the point. Because, I mean, the bottom line for them is how much do we pay in our taxes and what are we really doing? So we have to get to that
And
anyway.
Frank always does an excellent job with all of that, so
All right, so that's the two beginning parts, and then the needs that are increasing dramatically, what would we
We've got
like,
the opioid,
what parts do we want to
crisis.
talk about? And this
Well-
is where you guys want to chime in too.
I mean, just how, like Andy said before, we have a generation of kids with parents that are not in the house now taking care of them because of the opioid crisis.
A lot of this can be statistics too. I mean, I've just noticed since my kids have been enrolled in Brattleboro Town schools, the percentage of kids on free and reduced lunch going up and up and up. So the poverty is growing. That is easy to track. Then you've also got all of these statistics on kids in foster care and
How this
homeless children, and so the numbers do a lot of the talking, but I don't know if we want to go into some of the more scary stories that we've talked about in this group, or if that's
Yeah.
good,
Yes.
or I don't know,
We
what
have
do
to.
other people think?
I think the scary stories need to be told.
Yes.
I remember when Andy
I think Andy had
got
some.
up one year and
Yeah.
talked about
Unfortunately,
the,
it's-
I wouldn't use that phrase, parents not in the house.
Well, no, that wasn't what we were saying. That was,
That's not what we can.
no, we
I
were
would,
typing that, but just.
I
try to
didn't type
keep
that
it that
in.
we have an increasing intensity of social problems.
We have more kids in foster care now, though, than we've had.
Yeah, and I'm,
But-
And that
have you guys seen this?
needs to be stated though
2017
too.
However much on children and families. In our region, 16.9% rate increase in children in DCF custody in the last year.
60,
16.9.
60.
Read the quote exactly.
When you say
Increase.
region, what's
Children
it?
in Southeast Vermont region, children in DCF custody increased to 16.9 rate per 1,000 in
Oh, so it's not an
Wait, did you
increase.
say it
No, it
increased to
increased.
16.9 or it increased 16.9?
Right.
Children in DCF custody under age 9 increased to 16.9 rate per 1,000.
But from what was
From-
so
Well, what this report says is that in 2012, there were 33 children, in 2015, there were 50, but there's not a number for
Okay.
2016, but they said it's,
okay, I thought you said it increased 16%. You're saying it increased to 16%.
Yeah.
But you can get those numbers from DCF easily, and they can tell you
Yeah.
how many children right now are in DCF care.
Right, so and I don't know if southeastern region
Is
is
our-
beyond Wyndham County.
right.
But Wyndham County data is, I'm told,
Higher?
not the highest, among the highest in the state.
No, it says Franklin is the highest with 23, and then there's Caledonia and Southern Essex at 18, and then there's us.
Right, but I'm saying, I don't know if that includes, if that's more than
Right.
Wyndham County.
It's not more
Right.
people.
It's
not
by
more people
region,
live there,
so,
But
yeah.
the percentage of poverty is higher.
Right.
Right, but it's
Uh,
county
He's
and
just
region
saying,
too.
we
is
have-
that
what is
counting
the
Wyndham
region
County
more
or
than Wyndham
or
County?
beyond
Right.
Wyndham County
Wyndham,
is this statistical?
Springfield
Yeah,
is not.
no, Springfield has their own page, so it's,
It's
it might
up to
include
Bells-
like
Bells
Bells
Falls.
Falls, yeah.
Okay, so going back to my grand overview. So we're on to needs dramatically increasing. I have the opioid crisis, trauma, the numbers that we track, like homeless, DCF, foster care, the percentage of kids on free and reduced lunch, and the just increasing intensity of social related ills, I guess.
Well, and you should mention how we're now universal meals for,
So that goes under doing a good job.
okay.
Is there anything else that everyone wants to list under problems? I'm on to the other side then, doing a good job, we put down universal
Just, I think the
meals,
transition, if we can get a,
the transiency.
yeah.
That's a good one.
Because, yeah, that's unusual, when people,
For some of the data that was shared at our last meeting when Greg Stoller was presenting, was looking at the number of students that are, were placed in out-of-district placements, and then where we are now.
So that goes on my
Yes.
good side.
So
Yes.
it's a good side, but it's also a need, so we still have significant behavioral needs,
Okay.
emotional, mental health needs in our schools.
But the cost has
and-
gone down because we don't have the out-of-school placements
Right.
now.
so that's part of doing a good job.
Yeah.
So in that, we want to say that we're doing a good job by the behaviorists, the STEP program, and the
Yeah,
Expanding
I
the
think the
support.
whole MTSS framework.
MTSS.
Supports that we have in place for students. that-
Well, I want to say what they are,
Yeah,
So,
MTSS and
MTSS.
STEP, for sure.
and behaviorists.
And also the the teachers and staff learning to
Right,
become trauma-informed in
Professional
their
development.
practices.
And the social worker
And the social-
and the wraparound services. Also, can we talk about the Antioch interns
Sure.
at this point?
We have Antioch interns who are become teachers
In a master's program, we have Antioch interns we have interns in the BCBA program.
BCBA is behavioral.
No, Board certified behavioral analyst.
There's only 1,000 acronyms.
And just one
And then
thing,
we're
it
training-
probably will be mentioned anyway, but I think it's the big part of the STEP program is that the teachers get training through that process as well. for managing
So
the
meaning
kids.
STEP kids affect and STEP the teachers. And then this is also leading to less cost and out of district placement. All right, we only said universal meals. I think we do a little bit more than that on food. I'd like to tout the nutritional level of the food.
Sure.
Changes
That
that.
the farm to school, or the, what is it? Farm to.
Veggie of the month.
Farm to table.
Farm to school, it's farm to school.
Farm to school.
But isn't there a different,
Fruit and vegetable grants we get from snack program.
But Andy has led the charge of really ensuring that our meals are much higher quality. So we've reduced sugar, we've reduced trans fats, we've increased. So I think that would be something that, so people know we are offering.
just show this video?
And we also increased the amount of local foods, haven't we?
A lot of local food, yeah. We've eliminated mechanically processed foods, also called pink slime, all of our,
I don't know if we can go into that. That's-
well, mechanically processed, that's pretty important. But we banned things like high fructose corn syrup, things that are, I don't want to say this, but basically poisonous in our foods.
There are cookies over here, you see.
I know.
Did you make those?
I did, but there's no high fructose. All right, any, what about,
Jill, all three town schools also partner with the Vermont Food Bank
that's the one I wanted next.
to do backpack food program. And we're, I think, a couple of schools, we have some programming in the works for after-school programs to do cooking classes with an emphasis on nutrition and wellness, and to involve recipes to bring home to families that relate to Veggie Van Go produce directly.
The backpack is food goes home with kids on the weekend.
And the universal meals, is that where I should talk about the fact we do summer? Or is that another program we can list this summer?
That's another program.
Yeah, that was predated the universal
Yeah,
meals.
that's everybody.
What do we call that? Summer meals?
Summer
Is that it?
Yeah, summer meals program.
We can make an acronym for that if you like.
No, thank you. No more.
Really.
SNP.
There's also after-school meals.
That's another one.
For any student who's doing anything after school.
And then I also think that one of the things we do well here is the good stuff, I like to call it, that there's still a lot of the fun things going on, and there's tutoring after school, but I'd like to list a bunch of the fun things that we're doing.
Yes,
After
especially the
school,
ones
so you
where
wanna-
we're involved with the community, like the
Yes.
youth theater program and music.
So
music
start
programs.
naming off these and not too fast, so that NEYT,
It's a town schools theater program
Right.
at NEYT.
here's some here. Theater,
Are you looking for like what the after-school
Homework club,
clubs are?
drama club,
yeah.
Chinese club,
Strings. Gym.
And the
Student
strings program
Senate.
is still with DMC, right?
And then Destination Imagination, they have a Green Street.
We have a finishing band, we have a chorus.
Jazz band now, isn't
Jazz
it?
band.
Or is it still extension band?
What's Crazy 8? At Oak Grove School.
That's a K2, it's a national curriculum that is for K2 math enrichment.
Oh, it's an after-school
We have the-
math
It's an
thing.
after-school.
we have the
thing,
Coles
yeah.
bike.
Yep. Natural
here at Oak
playground,
Grove. The
Yeah.
bike's here for a week.
Bikes.
The bikes.
a natural playground. Natural playground.
Natural playground. That's not really after school, but that's a nice, was the bike
It's a
thing
nice
after school or not?
Upgrade of the playground.
No, right?
Inside, well, both.
Comes out to a different level on the old master chart here, so I keep my brain going. I mean, I think
Girls on the Run.
it's still decent to say some of the other things that just happened here too, like assemblies and,
Public shows.
Title I family engagement events.
Winter sports.
Slapstick science.
Do we want to talk any about the actual academic piece?
Nah.
Just saying, you know,
We have
we're
time
like
for that.
literally mentioning every single other thing
Yes.
that the schools do.
I think that's good. Academic performance, what can we say, administrators, that says, look, this is what's going on here, we should.
I think it's important because despite the fact that we have some really high needs students, we do very well academically, so I feel like we need to.
The acronym is MTSS, Jim.
Yeah, I think.
That's the multi-tiered system of
Yeah.
support, but that doesn't tell anybody anything academic. What are the test score, or what can I show
Well,
them?
that's the outline item, is MTSS. And then the
There's a-
bullets are,
Oh, boy. But I put that up, underneath everything else.
But it's a strategy that they use for every aspect, that's why it's, there's
Exactly.
behavioral MTSS, and then there's the academic learning MTSS,
You
the
have to see
same
the structure, it
structure for
doesn't fit
everything.
there, Ty.
so whole group instruction, small group instruction, targeted instruction.
And the result is that each student gets, well, what does it say on here?
Individualized
need.
learning.
Individual, yeah,
What I
differentiated.
need. Another acronym, Lyle spouts over here. Whole group, small group, and individual leads to
Win.
what I need.
Isn't that what you call it at Green Street?
We do?
Yeah.
Oh, my word.
What's
That's
it, what does it
cheesy.
stand for?
What I
Win. What I need. Okay.
Everybody, it's
Everybody
win.
cheers.
So I think if we just take this video and
That's right.
put it up on the town meeting.
Or
website.
some of the, take clips from some of the presentations that teachers have done.
Yeah, I mean, I
You
think
know?
that if we are gonna show something,
Oh,
Yes.
the part
So things that-
in the
Yes.
Green Street one where Mark talked about how they had, I just remember even in the test scores, big gains that happened when they started doing this approach and sort of not excusing why the problems existed, but saying, how can we solve these problems for this student who's having a lot of trouble?
Yeah, that example that I remember from Academy, one of the teachers talking about how the teachers are getting, you know, strategies and they're able to figure out one of their students, okay, to keep charting when, you know, when they might start acting out, so then they're able to be
Oh, yeah,
proactive,
anticipate that.
you know, and anticipate that, so,
Yeah.
you know, having that in there as
And
well.
and Jerry said something about, it was really cute, because he said, I probably shouldn't say this on TV, but about how when the staff identifies a need with a student, they start intervening right away. That may wind up in special ed, it may not, it doesn't matter, because the kid's gonna get the service, they're gonna get the intervention.
So Jill, are you preparing this for information night or for the meeting itself, the town meeting itself?
Well, both, but
The
information.
information night,
So that's what I thought, I just wanted to be clear, so.
the town
It's-
meeting.
it's
At the town
sooner.
meeting, we
Information
would
night.
be more
Town-
likely to have to answer questions than give a big, long presentation, right?
And none of these people will be here. They're all going to be at ASCD, I believe. Is that correct? In Boston.
On the Saturday,
meeting.
but on,
Good.
on representative night, we'll be
Yeah, I've
You'll be
already
here for
given
the
them a hard
Wednesday.
time. My
Unfortunate.
first time, and they're all leaving me.
On the Wednesday night, though, that when they all come, you'll be here.
So I could still be there in the accent by myself.
Jerry's holding down.
I might be,
We just have to pull ourselves together.
There was one more too that
Frank, you
Greg,
can answer that, right?
Greg had an example last time of the kids that he was showing. He said that specifically, like, this kid could finally do something with a swing, was it? That
It
was
was
huge.
a nonverbal kid who asked for,
Yeah.
he asked to push somebody else on the stage.
Yes, excellent example too.
And then I believe Jody, the social worker,
Streams all into video.
had something that struck me about the wraparound and what she did. I think it's a good, like,
Well, that's something we can talk about at the next
Tackle.
meeting, since those folks are all coming. Maybe we can talk a little bit more about some specific stuff to mention there.
okay, so then who's pulling all of this together for the town meeting? Ha 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 ha.
I've done it for a few years now. Can you send me notes? And I'll make
Yeah.
sure that each of these
She'll-
guys do something.
Okay. As long-
She would delegate it to Paul and
I'm going to
Julian.
delegate it to Paul and Julianne, Shelley, and Brian.
They can
These
pull
guys.
pieces from the video and do, we can actually have parts from some of those fabulous videos.
7:09.
Just send me that.
Lyle's gonna pass out the integrated field review.
Oh, she did
Because she
already.
already did.
But we're gonna table it and discuss it
Yes.
next time. This
Mine
is
go?
just my summary.
Must be
Right
right there.
Oh, that's it. All right, and then the other one is space and programming current and future needs. What do we want to say
So
on that?
that should be fairly quickly. Brattleboro Town principals we met with Frank. There were a few questions that we feel like we still need to collect some data on. So Deb actually is collecting some data, Janice Stockman's collecting some data. One of the questions for us is, what is the vision for pre-K?
Oh, I gotta
And-
put pre-K on the list too.
Yep, you probably should. And is the community sufficiently served by the providers, or would we be adding a service to the community to add another pre-K? And so before we really wanted to consider space needs, we wanted to consider what is our vision moving forward, because we do not want to have providers lose students, lose their business because we keep opening up pre-Ks. So Janice is actually is going to do some work collecting data on, are there waiting lists? Are there people that would send their child knowing that it's a school day, school year program?
I am just gonna put a guess out there that based on from what I've heard from administrators, the high needs of kids entering kindergarten, that there are people whose needs are not being met, that could really benefit from pre-K that was all day long and free 100%. So I suspect that there is more need, even though there's tons of great preschools here and the subsidy helps a lot of people, but something's not matching up because every kid's not ready for kindergarten.
Right, but we also
So-
have to figure out what their term for all day is. Is it school day all day,
Right.
or is it work day all day?
Right.
So school day, school year is.
That's a big
Right.
difference.
Yes.
So other things that we discussed are what you just said, Robin, what are the benefits to having in-school programs, and some of the things that we talked about are, we have those children younger, we can start getting them where we want them, we can identify their needs earlier and start working on those. But other things, what will it cost us? We need to work with Frank to see.
So
What
basically,
staffing
you're
would cost?
looking at pre-K only? No.
Nope, but that's the first part of
Okay.
the talk. And then the other thing is, if we do decide that we need to have another classroom, what if the best space for it is at Oak Grove? Is that an issue? So these are all just questions that we are still in the, discussion stage, and want you to know that these are the questions that we're discussing. We're looking at each of the principals. I've given them all a spreadsheet looking at square footage of each site, the number of employees, the number of students, the number of classrooms, that type of thing, and doing some program descriptions and what each program is for and how we're accommodating students with the programs. So none of us, including Frank, felt like we're not feasibility experts. So that's how we started, and we know that it's going to take us probably the rest of the year to gather data, meet again, before we can come back to you with any real information, hard information.
Well, this is good though, because I wanted to know where you were going, so that at least tells us that. There was one other question that I said I wanted to put on there that was asking Lyle privately earlier, because I didn't understand Vernon and the whole thing of what's going on with Vernon, so I was trying to understand that, and Lyle, if you want to.
Sure. So Vernon voted to withdraw from BU number 6, not from Wyndham Southeast Supervisory Union. So Vernon remains a part of our supervisory union. They still pay their assessment as they have done in the past. They're assessed just like all the other towns in WSESU. They receive the same services, so Frank's services, mine, the curriculum coordinators. They will remain a part of WSESU until the State Board of Education determines what a consolidation, merger looks like for us. At that time, Vernon will be assigned a supervisory union. It may be us, but it's likely that it may not be us if they decide they want to retain choice, because you can't put a choice school in with other schools that are don't have choice. Dover has choice, so it's likely they could be put into a district with Dover. Until then, until that determination is made, Vernon continues to pay their assessment just like everybody else. Were there other things? Oh, you had a question about what if other towns are coming to us with proposals. And that's happened. It happened, Marlboro sent a 7-8 choice agreement. I sent it to our attorney. Our attorney made some pretty major changes because the way they sent it, we would be liable for a lot of special ed lawsuits if they came up. Because it was 7 and 8, I sent it to Ricky Davidson. Ricky Davidson presented it to the BU6 board. The BU6 board talked about it and decided until we have more information on what's actually going to happen with us with consolidation, they did not want to make any commitment to any additional schools right now. If another town came forward and asked for some kind of an agreement, I would go through the same process, ensure that it's legal through our attorneys, and then send it to the school board chair of the board that they wanted to make an agreement with, and then that would come out for full discussion in a full board meeting.
Full supervisory board.
If it were a supervisory issue, but if, for instance...
If it's just 7th and 8th.
Yeah, that was just, but if Guilford, for instance, said, well, we've decided that we'd really like to have an agreement with Brattleboro, it makes more sense for us to send our kids to Brattleboro, it would come to you.
So those were just questions I had because the Vernon thing completely flummoxed me and understanding and looking at the budgets and the UHS budget and the SU budget and knowing that they'd left, but then not really leaving. So I was.
Yeah, they're leaving the high school district only.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Anything else for the agenda for next time beyond looking at the integrated field review summary and then the entire work plan that we had, which is looking at the, hopefully the therapy dog, but all the social stuff. Anything else, guys?
I have one question, maybe for Lyle. Has there been any conversation about what happens with the local boards like us if a consolidated board is determined by the state?
No.
Well,
One of the proposals is that that has been sent to the state is that each of us, each town retains their own board until we know what the State Board of Education determines for us.
Yeah.
And then I assume that the State Board of Education is going to say, and this is how you will move forward, or else they'll put it back on Frank and me and they'll say, figure it out, send it to us so that we can let you know if it's a legal way to proceed.
I'm not sure, I think we're talking, I was talking about that 4-month gap between our terms ending and the next one's
Yeah,
beginning.
what would happen, I would assume, is that we would have to have people, like right now, there's a gap between the Vernon BU6 reps' term is up in March, but they don't actually leave until June, and so the Vernon Town School Board will have to appoint someone to fill that gap. I would assume that the same process would happen here, that anyone that's term is up would have to be appointed for the gap time.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, school? All in favor? Aye. Done.